All right. So I think all of us are parents. What is the best thing you can give to your kids? All right. So I'll give you a couple of options. You guys can, mention your own. Is it money? Is it communication skills? Is it to teach them about, business? Is it generosity? Is it to be kind? Is it to forgive? What do you want to give to your kids? Keisha?
For me, the best thing I can give my kids, thinking back to my own childhood, what I miss was time with my parents. We are short. Time is infinite, but yet we never seem to have enough. So I make it a point to spend quality time with them. And when I'm spending time with them, I am present. I'm not on my phone. I'm not doing something else. Even if it's only 15 minutes, for that 15 minutes, I have they have my undivided attention. So for me, it's time. You want them, I don't want to raise jerks. My goal is that I'm going to put good humans out into the world. But I think for me, how I'm going to accomplish that is by giving them my time. They're going to learn from my examples. They're going to learn from our conversations. Like, it's important that we have dinner as a family at least 2 times a week where we sit down together. Like, Sunday dinners are big in my house, and we'll sit in the dining room because we never use it. So we'll sit in the dining room. I play vinyl records.
Wow.
They're getting into music like 90s R&B.
Wow.
That's what we do.
You're raising them right.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
And if I sit down and I forget, they'll ask me, how come you're not playing music? So I know that those everyday moments are making a difference. And my son, we were talking, he and I were home on Monday by ourselves. My husband had to take our daughter somewhere, and I asked him, I'm like, we're having dinner. I'm like, oh, Nathan, how was your day? And then he proceeded to pretend that he was asking my follow-up question that he knew I was going to ask. And I'm like, oh, what I was going to say? And he's like, yeah, I know what you're going to say, Mommy, because you talk to me a lot. And that made me feel like, okay, I'm doing something right as a parent, because he acknowledges that I do. We have lots of conversations. So for me, it's time.
Wow. That's powerful. Jason, what would you love to give to your child?
That's a great one, actually, because that's really the most impactful influence you can have on your kids is by modeling the behavior that that they see, right? But in the spirit of not being redundant, I would say probably, because for lack of a better term, grit, resiliency. Because no matter who you are, you could be a trust fund kid, you could be a kid with no options. The ability to not necessarily be hopelessly optimistic, but able to turn inwards on yourself and rely on your own skills. Part of it is being able to seek out assistance where you feel you need it, which is self-awareness, right? But resilience is probably the biggest thing, because everyone in life is going to have setbacks in the personal life and professional life. And the ability to bounce back is something that I think that's key to overall success / happiness.
Interesting you mentioned grit. I think I saw a TED Talk, and they observed hundreds or thousands of successful people, top of industry, like the army and business and all these industries, right?
Right.
And the number one characteristic was grit.
Grit.
Right? That was basically something that almost every single one had.
Yeah.
Right? Resiliency, grit was the number one trait. That it wasn't smarts, it wasn't all these other things. It was basically grit.
Yeah.
Sanjay, how about you? You have the youngest kids, so what do you like? What do you like to teach them?
Yeah, maybe it's a combination of a few things, to be honest with you. I think, being kind is important. But I think kind of just piggybacking off that grit thing, and I know you have money up on that list there as an option. I think that's probably the least important thing to give your kids. I think it's important to teach them how to build your own, right? Your own stacks, right? Achieve, set your goals and achieve those goals, right? I think that's really important, right? I think one thing that I noticed with our kind of vintage of parents is that we're so concerned about them failing that we forget to like focus on like, hey, like let me teach you how to fish type of thing, right? So you can do this on your own, right? And I think the idea is that we hope that our kids are more successful than us, right?
Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
Because
100%.
they've had more opportunities than we have,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But do you? This was one of the topics on one of the previous podcasts about, the tougher maybe upbringing we might have had compared to our kids made us who we are, and that's made us successful perhaps, and not giving them the same hardships, right? Are they softer? But anyways, it's a different topic for a different day.
I think a part of that though, to kind of like relate it back in, I think it's like it's hard not to spoil your kids because there's a lot of things that we didn't get growing up, and you want to give it to them.
And you can always justify it.
You can always
Good
justify it,
kids,
right?
but they don't.
But at the same time, it's like you want to balance it out where
Yeah.
they're still motivated, right? Because the issue is that you see some like, and you've probably seen this before in the workplace where you got some kid who gets hired on and he's a trust fund kid. And there's no grit. He's not motivated because he's been given everything on a silver platter.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I think going back to my thing about, teaching them how to fish, right? And it goes back to that saying, you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, he'll eat for the rest of life. And that's kind of what you want your kids to, at a certain point in time, you don't want to be stressed about your kids when they're 40 and you're like, they're not going to make it on their own. It's like, what do I do now, right? And
Finish your basement so they can stay.
yeah, exactly, right? It's like I got to work till I die to support you, but it's really kind of like I want to be at a point in time when you're just you're rocking whatever you've chosen in life.
Yeah.
You're a rock star. You don't. It's like my relationship as a parent has changed now, right? As opposed to me guiding you. It's kind of just, hey, like I'm here, like I'm watching you, like this is amazing, right? And you no longer need that guidance in that same way, right?
But as your kids get older, right? Like you start off with where they're babies, infants, whatever, and you do everything for them, and then they turn into toddlers and they start to challenge you and ask you questions. So as they mature, your relationship and your role, I mean, you're always going to be their parent, but your role kind of changes, right? I was a doer when they were very little. Then I became a teller. This is how you're going to do it. And now as my daughter is in the 10th grade, I'm turning into like I'm a guiding, more of a consultant, because I want her to start to navigate and make decisions on her own. So my relationship with her is changing. I'm now more consulting and guiding her. But again, to me, giving her my time, but I'm also, one of the things we strive to teach our children is common sense. People lack, and I don't know why they say common sense because it's not very common, but just teaching them how to problem solve and make decisions and use their judgment. That's one of the things that we focus on teaching our kids.
So I love the answers, really good answers. I would say the thing that I want to teach, I've been trying to teach since they were, I want to say very young, but recently, at least the last year or two, is communications. It's something it's so difficult, right? But I've seen like too many examples of people's relationships fail because of communication, whether it be with a spouse, with family member, with a boss. It just happens, and it's because either side or both sides, neither sides, or one side fail to communicate, right? I try right now to have them communicate effectively, express their feelings, what they really feel, even taking 2 steps back. Some people don't even know what they feel. They just know that they're kind of upset, or they can't pinpoint in what it is, but try to identify, this is what's making me upset, Sanjay. And this is, and being able to be comfortable having that discussion, right? I've seen a person that I know, a couple, very nice couple. They came to our house several times. They seem to be very close, but I guess something got in the way, and one of the members of the couple didn't communicate effectively, or the other person didn't let the other one communicate. And this person basically left the country with their child, not telling the other that
They're leaving.
They're leaving, right?
Like permanently, or just?
I think it was permanently, right?
Wow.
So that just taught me. Actually, that was the event that really taught me, like, how communication is so important, that having good communication could have repaired, maybe it could have repaired it earlier. Maybe, they could have, it could help in many, many situations, right? So that's what I want to teach my kids, to be able to understand what the problem is, to be able to be comfortable expressing their feelings. Don't always say whatever is the nice thing to say, what's the friendly thing to say. Sometimes, the faster you say what's really on your mind, and in a respectful manner, if you could do that, I think you're going to be much happier in life. And I've seen, I don't know if it's the older generation, but a lot of my bosses, that generation seemed to be so good at communication, especially when it was a topic that they didn't want to be involved in, right? Like it was a negative topic, right? But they're able to have that communication. Whereas I find that people of generation like myself or younger, no one wants to be like confrontational or direct, right? With one of the previous topics in one of the previous podcasts. But that's what I want to teach my kid, just to my kids to be really effective in communications.